Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 155th episode of Real Hawk Talk. This is Brian Nemhauser at Hawk Blogger on Twitter. And boy, it is good to be back with the crew. I can't even remember the last time I spoke to Nathan. At least Evan. Evan actually flew up to Seattle and we toasted some Matador nachos with Josh and Will. That was fun, man. So gonna welcome in the guys. What is it? What is your Twitter handle now, Evan?
Yeah, so the good news about my Twitter career is my handle has been consistent across all the years I've been on there. So it's Evan Hill HB. That is hopefully what it will be permanently.
Yeah, for someone that works in marketing, you are a whiz when it comes to throwing people off your social media trail. Breaking all the rules.
You know what it is? I gotta shake up the Niners fans every single offseason because there's a ton of really hardcore Niners fans that follow me a little bit too closely, and I just got to get them off my trail just a little bit.
I see. Wise moves there. And we will be joined by Jeff Simmons soon enough, but he's typically late. I'm sure he's doing softball or something. Who knows? Or what do they do in Canada? Curling? He's probably curling somewhere. But we do have Nathan Ernst at Nathan11. Still at Nathan11? You haven't changed.
I think
so.
All right. Excited to be your consolation prize for no Jeff today. So
Nathan,
go ahead, Evan.
I just don't feel like I've seen you active on Twitter a ton recently. Or have I just not? You retweet?
I do a lot of retweets. I'm real mad about this LeBron James, or not LeBron James trade, but the Russell Westbrook. Oh my God, I can't talk.
To LA.
This is gonna be good. Yeah.
Nathan is coming back to us in terms of speaking out loud. This is someone who's been just doing kind of a Buddhist silent meditative treatment over the off season. So it's a big step for Nathan. So give him a little bit of time to reacclimate to speaking out loud. I love it because any team with Russell Westbrook has no chance of winning a championship. So I'm super happy about that. Nathan, what have you been up to, man? Give us a little bit of Nathan's off season. What's been going on in your world?
I've been trying to be a real estate mogul. It's
a good time to do that.
Buying homes, trying to move. It's been a eventful couple months. So
how has that been? Because the Seattle proper real estate market is no joke, and it's not for the weak of heart.
It was really fun selling our house, but we put 6 offers on homes before we finally got ours, and we missed one by $9,000. We were $5,000 over on one, but didn't get it. And then we were even with another one of the houses. So we were neck and neck the whole way, spending way too much money on some of these homes, or trying to anyways, and whiffing. So it's a really miserable experience. We bought our house, and I'm super excited. I can't wait to get moved in. It's going to be awesome. So
do you move in soon? Or is it 60 days out?
It's into August.
Okay, cool.
Well, it is challenging shopping in the $50 million house region. That's budget it's hard to find the right home for that kind of price. So I'm glad you finally found Bill Gates.
I'm sure Nathan's just grateful for that Patreon money.
When you're spending that amount of money, when you're spending $50 million, you really want to find the perfect house, so it's really excruciating.
Did you go for the one helipad or two helipad?
Two. Yeah. I'm not some peasant, Brian.
You're not a plebe.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good to know. I will make sure to fly my toy helicopter over there as soon as you've moved in. Speaking of money, speaking of Patreon, we should start. We got to start here, guys. I got the chance to go to the Ben's Club charity dinner last week, I think it was, and they did not have a chance to do the whole affair this year with the auction where I get to do a bunch of fun stuff for a bunch of the patrons. I think they wanted to, but just couldn't pull it all together. So they did a small dinner for some of the larger donors. And because of all the support we've had from this group over the years, we are one of the larger donors, and was able to give our donation this year, which was $40,000. A good more than half of that comes from the patrons. Then my company matches 10,000 of that, Adobe, and then Rachel and I put our own donation on top of that. So really proud that we've been able to do that, and that 40,000 put us up to $210,000 we have donated to charity through Real Hawk Talk, through Hawk Blogger, dating back a decade at this point. So
Brian, that is crazy.
Really, yeah, go ahead.
It's just crazy. Like I know it's like every year, and it's not to toot our own horn, but like every single year we announce the totals and blah blah blah, but it's like this community is crazy. Like we could easily be doing something else with this money, or people could easily be sending money to other locations. But like, I'm genuinely really proud of like this Seahawks community, like making a difference. We get to come on and bitch about dumb football things on a weekly basis, and people actually send their money to good causes to support us to do that. It's cool. Like I'm sorry, I don't mean to toot our own horn, but it's a good feeling, genuinely.
I don't think it's even tooting our own horn. It's a cool deal. I mean, it's good. Everyone gets to contribute, and I think people get something out of it too. It's not just charitable, and some people might look at this sounds incredibly privileged, and I acknowledge that there's definitely privilege involved, but I think if any of us, even the folks listening, if you had $200,000 now, of course, that would be amazing. Like that's a lot of money, but over the course of 10 years, but that's Ben's fund donates, their grants are $1,000 per grant. So they really try to make sure a lot of people get impacted by the money. And that means that over 200 families have been impacted by what we've done as a community. And so I love that. I love that. I believe in helping 200 families over helping one or two. And so I just think that, it's great. And from all, by the way, for people that don't know, Ben's Fund used to actually promote or be run by FEAT of Washington, Families, can't remember exactly Families for Effective Autism Treatment, I think is what it was. But they've moved to Seattle Foundation, which is really cool because we donated last year to Seattle Foundation for All-in-Wa to help with pandemic support, small businesses, minorities that were being unevenly impacted by the pandemic. So Seattle Foundation is fantastic. I'm really happy that Ben's Fund joined that group. Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I just wanted to make sure people knew that we appreciate it. And if you haven't already, go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Now is the time to sign up. There are still Ring of Honor spots available, and we've got a few folks in the Ring of Honor, and now that we can get back together again during the season, we're hoping.
I was going to ask you about that, Brian. What's the status? Like, I actually haven't spoken to Brian, for anybody listening, pre this show about this whatsoever, so I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but what's the deal for this fall? Are we going to do anything in person?
It's still a little iffy with how things have been. So I'm trying to make sure to honor, where people are going to be comfortable. But yeah, want to start talking with the Ring of Honor folks. For folks that don't know what we're talking about, we get together, buy dinner usually at Daniel's Broiler, someplace nice, or do something nice, and get the crew together to spend time with our Ring of Honor folks as a special thank you. And we'll figure that out. But yeah, it's gonna be a fun year getting folks back together. Can
I say just one last thing?
Yeah, of course.
I'm gonna cut you off for like the 17th time.
Yeah,
11 minutes into Real Hawk Talk. Nathan's mortgage payments are starting soon, so now's a really great time to sign up for Patreon because what's it come first? What's it due first? September 1st, Nathan?
So no, that's another nice thing about buying a house, man. You get like a month or two.
Oh, you're right. It's like what's the word called? It's like a financial
Nobody wants to hear this. Nobody wants. I'm going to cut you off. Nobody wants to hear this.
Yeah.
I mean, if you really want to talk about interesting things, like what I was busy doing before this show was watching F-Boy Island on HBO.
I don't know what that is.
Oh my God. It is trash TV, but Rachel and I were enjoying it quite a bit. It is 12 F boys and 12 nice guys and 3 women, and they're trying to figure out which were the nice guys and which are the F boys, and they send them all home. And it's hosted by Nikki Glazer. It is awfully good. Like,
It's hosted by who?
Nikki Glazer,
Oh,
the comedian.
I thought you said Malcolm Glazer, and I'm like, no, it's not.
No. That's the quality of TV that I'm watching right now. So I really need the Seahawks season to start. And thankfully, guys, yesterday was the first day of training camp. A lot to talk about there. And where do we want to start? I mean, I can give you guys a little bit of some first impressions I had from camp yesterday. But before I do, I kind of want to know from each of you, is there a specific player that you are eager to find out? It can be a veteran player. It can be a new player. It can be a rookie. It can be an existing player you want to see take the next step. Who are you kind of having your eye on heading into camp? And Nathan, I'm going to start with you.
Daryl Taylor, I think, is the one. He's in a really weird spot for like a lot of reasons, right? I mean, obviously missed his first year. They're lining him up at Sam, which is not ideal at all, but he's also getting rave reviews. He was, an exciting prospect. So he's the guy that to me is the most interesting, just to see where he plays and how good is he, and is he fully healed? Did he lose a step? Like, just there's a million questions with him, and they could all be pretty important for the team.
Yeah, I've got some words on Daryl Taylor. It'll come back to that in a second. Evan, who's your one to watch?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Witherspoon. I think he has the potential to make, in terms of relative to, I think, general fan expectations and potential performance this year, Witherspoon has a massive opportunity to make a massive impact. I think he got injured late last year. I was tweeting about this just a little bit earlier. He got injured in week 11 last year. Had a nagging foot injury through basically the rest of the season. If you do this like advanced stats, like split, pre week 11, 1 through 11 and 11 through the playoffs, he's a completely different player. And pre week 11, Niner fans were basically saying that he was a must extend player. He's 25 years old, was playing the best football of his life really in weeks 1 through 11. And he ended up being benched and, didn't play much throughout the playoffs. So I think if he's fully healthy, he could legitimately be CB1 for us. And if he plays like one, the secondary, I don't want to jinx myself like I did last year, but the secondary could look pretty good. So he's a player I'm keeping an eye on.
Oh my God, that'd be funny to go back and watch that episode. I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that.
The secondary being one of the best in football. Oh wow, yeah.
Can I just say one more thing? I'm so glad the Seahawks did not pay Shaquille Griffin what he got paid by the Jaguars.
So glad. And I'll tell you, like, keying off both. So it's really interesting you guys picked those two names, because there's definitely two of the names that I had my eyes on at camp. And Witherspoon, like, before I even knew, like, I have my roster. If you haven't gone to hawkblogger.com, please do. I've got my 90-man roster with notes on every player that you can print, hand out, take to camp. It's just a good way, even to watch when you're watching the preseason games. It's a good way to kind of quickly identify who's who, because all the numbers have changed. And Carlos Dunlap's wearing like 8. Like, there's all a bunch of weird numbers out there now. But Witherspoon just looks the part. I mean, the way he moves, granted, these are padless practices. These are first impressions, but all you can really tell at this point is what kind of athlete these guys are, what kind of body types, how do they move in space, how do they react laterally quickly.
What's really funny about him is he has like a 5 or 6 inch like height differential between like DJ Reed and Trey Brown and Ugo Amadi. Trey Flowers is like the one exception, but like we've always, we've been talking about the past decade how like Pete Carroll was all into these like, tall, lengthy, like Legion of Boom players, but suddenly their cornerback group looks pretty.
It's compact.
Small.
Yeah, it is. It is. But I mean, like, you brought up another guy. Like, so Witherspoon was one of the first guys that jumped out to me as just like, wow, I couldn't take my eyes off him during practice. I think if he's healthy, not only that, but he locates the ball. I could already tell he locates the ball better than Shaquille Griffin. I mean, that's not a strength of Shaq's game. He did other things really well, but I was really excited about him. Trey Brown was another guy where I had to look up his number. I was like, who is that? He is short, but the dude is stocky. Like, he's built a little bit like a fire hydrant. Like, and I'm really eager to see. They see him playing outside, so I didn't get a chance to see as much, but I really liked the way he moved, and I'm really eager to see him a little bit more. Darrell Taylor, Nathan, my notes on him weren't great. I was not impressed, particularly with how he moved. He looks pretty small, and I saw him they were doing a fair amount of run plays at one point during practice, and he was just getting washed out. I didn't see him physically like getting in there, and he just didn't move that well. Now, the biggest caveat to that is, one, everybody else is saying he's great. Players are saying he's great. Coaches are saying he's great. And people have compared him to Frank Clark.
Oh boy.
In the locker room.
And in the locker room or on the field?
What's that?
In the locker room or on the field?
He's an Uzi-less Frank Clark, I think is the
Gotcha.
quote. But I will say that Frank Clark didn't jump out to me either. So that's the caveat I'll throw out there. Frank Clark was not like a sudden athlete. He just had a lot of power to how he played. So first impressions go, I was hoping to be excited, but I was not particularly excited by Darrell Taylor. I mean, if you find out, Nathan, that he's not great, how big of a deal do you think that is?
I mean, the team is built to absorb that. I think they've got enough depth and everything that it's not going to be a big deal. Obviously, it's a pretty big bummer for Schneider, and some questions around his drafting I think will kind of continue if he does wash out. But I mean, the comparisons to Frank Clark aren't really new. I mean, I think when people watched him as a draft prospect, he looked like that kind of player, where he really got by on determination and violence and strength and more than suddenness. It'll be interesting to see how he looks in the preseason and see how he looks more as a defensive end than as a linebacker. But I don't think it'll be a huge negative for the team. But I think that if he could really break out and be a really positive player, obviously that could help quite a bit.
Yeah, what's interesting, guys, is so the one of the stories has been that Taylor is going to be a Sam, right? He's going to be a Sam linebacker, take the spot that KJ was playing last year. People keep forgetting that Jordan Brooks was Will last year. So people say Jordan Brooks replaced KJ, but really Darrell Taylor's replacing KJ, at least from last season. But Darrell Taylor didn't work out in linebacker drills. He was with defensive line in all the drills. So he did line up at Sam. It's not like they're lying, but it's pretty clear they still see him as an edge rusher, as like their primary interest in him. So I think Sam may just continue to be something, a way to get him on the field. But let's hope. I mean, if he's Frank Clark without the Uzi, that would be fantastic. And with the rookie contract, without the contract that Frank Clark has. Someone brought this up. We're going to take a sharp left turn because this has been a rumor that's jumped up. Related to cornerback in general, that position group is wide open. DJ Reed and Witherspoon were the top corners in the depth chart yet, at camp and how they were lining up. But who knows how that's going to end up. And now Xavien Howard, Pro Bowl, All Pro. I can't remember if he's an All Pro, but he is one of the best corners in the game, no doubt about that. For Miami, has requested a trade, and Seattle has been identified as one of the potential targets or destinations, I should say. How do you guys feel about that? Like, Evan, I'll start with you. I mean, do you get excited about that? Are you like, oh crap, are you going to do it again? Trading, draft picks for veteran expensive player? Like, where are you on the Xavien Howard rumors?
Yeah, I would not be super receptive to a trade like that. I really don't see it being super feasible. Like, he wants a huge raise. If they were to take on his contract as it is today, it's going to be like a $10 million cap hit for Seattle, which they can't even afford right now under their cap space. So they'd have to obviously extend a player or cut a player or do something tricky from a salary cap perspective to open up space to fit him under the salary cap. But I just don't think it makes sense for this team. The Jamal Adams trade shifted over some draft capital, and it doesn't feel like it would be a smart move for them. Obviously, he's a really good player, but he's like 28 or 29 years old. And we all know how corners, play at age 30, 31, 32. I'm not going to pretend he's not a good player. He's a really good player. He's probably a top 3 corner in the NFL, but I'm not sure it's wise for this team from like a long-term sort of roster building perspective.
Nathan, where are you at on this?
Yeah, I'm pretty much the same place. I mean, he's 28. You already gave up a lot of draft capital for Adams. And we'll see what this cornerback group looks like. They should feel okay about it. Obviously, he'd be a huge upgrade, but I don't know. It's not like you'd be feeling some drastic need or anything either. So I just don't think it makes sense outside of him coming for a lot less than we would have all guessed.
Yeah, I love the player. I mean, he is a great corner. Like, physical, ball hawk, good cover guy. Like, I don't think there's a matchup that he can't, hold his own against. So I think he is every bit one of the best corners in the NFL. I hate the idea of the team going out and trading, more of the future, in terms of draft picks and signing a guy who's that old. I mean, I would take a lot of other options over that to improve that group. And I think we got to see. I don't feel so bad about the cornerback group. I mean, for folks that maybe don't remember the guys that are there on the roster right now, I'm just pulling it up. You've got Witherspoon. You've got DJ Reed as the starters. You've got Marquise Blair in the middle, which, I think you have to feel pretty good about. You've got Ugo Amadi, who also has played in the middle and has been really good. You've got Trey Flowers, who a lot of people hate. And we have talked trash about Trey Flowers. I am maybe alone on this front, but I felt like he was more than a serviceable cornerback the last half of the year. I thought he improved and steadied himself. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with Trey Flowers getting some snaps. You've got Trey Brown, who's one of your 3 draft picks. I'm not particularly excited about Demarius Randall, although he's been in the league. He was a first-round pick, so you got to give him some props. I think Ryan Neal even got some corner snaps. I can't remember.
There's a corner you're not mentioning yet that they signed this year.
I was going through. There's Pierre Desir.
Do you think Desir could have a potential resurgence from his time with the Colts? Because he got like 2 years ago, he got a legitimate contract from the Colts. It was playing really good ball.
He was. I mean, I liked him when he was here before. So, I mean, I can't. It wouldn't shock me, but he's had a few pretty bad seasons. So it's hard to say.
I guess if there's any situation for him to rebound in, I think it's Seattle.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, look, this is a safety-driven defense. It has been for forever. And we welcome into the show Jeff Simmons at Real Jeff Simmons on Twitter. Were you at some softball game or curling?
I was at a softball game.
Did you
tell?
win?
Were you called out by an American?
No.
Was this the
It's
Olympics?
No, I was playing myself.
Wait,
Oh,
am
yeah,
I
you know-
hallucinating, or didn't you get called out by somebody once, like Real Hawk Talk or something like that?
I think
Or am
like Kenny Mayne made fun of me for playing softball.
No, you had somebody that recognized you from the podcast.
Oh yeah,
That's what
that
I'm talking
did
about.
happen. You're right.
Okay.
You're right. No one recognized me from Real Hawk Talk. Disappointing.
Well, what we're talking about right now, Real Jeff Simmons, is the cornerback position. We're just going over the Xavien Howard rumors and how none of us are really interested in adding a 28-year-old expensive corner with what he would cost to get, even though I think we all think he's a great corner. Evan's got a bit of a hard-on for Pierre Desir, is what we've just found out.
I think there's real upside based on the contract.
That was an interesting choice of phrase, given where I led you, but okay.
Hard on, yeah.
So you're a Pierre Desir fan. I'm not buying Pierre Desir yet. If I'm looking at on the roster at some guys that I am interested in at the cornerback, I think Jordan Miller is an interesting one. And that's a guy that, and Brian Mills, I think, is another interesting one to keep an eye on. But Miller was a guy, I think that he was a Husky, right? Drafted in the 5th round by Atlanta. Am I thinking of the right guy? Yeah, he was drafted by Atlanta, played for them for a little bit. He looks the part. So I think the Seahawks have been able to get by without elite cornerback talent for a while, and I think of all the position groups, that's the one I'm not as concerned about.
So
Somebody
in the chat said, aren't you always complaining about the fact that we never make it past the divisional round and don't take advantage of Russ's prime? This is the type of move that takes you over that hill. I think, I mean, I don't think anyone here is advocating for them being like irresponsible and going for broke. Like this, Russ isn't 39. He's not Tom Brady. This isn't like you have 1 or 2 years to do this, right? And part of the struggles with getting past the divisional round has been just they don't have some depth, and they don't have it's just been clear that they've been missing a lot of the draft capital over the years, right? And they've been trying to scrap and get things done and piece things together, and they haven't been able to like build a foundation underneath them, and that's starting to change, it feels like. So like, no, I don't think that just because Russ is still in his prime and we're desperate to get past, the wild card divisional round, I don't think that means making like, you don't want to sell the next 5 years for this one.
Well, let's ask a tougher question, because we are all very pragmatic fellas, especially at this point in the season.
I am.
Yes, you are.
That's a compliment.
You are. I'm gonna give this one to you, Evan. If we would not make a big move for a cornerback, one of the best cornerbacks in football, is there a position? Doesn't have to be a specific player. Is there a position where you would consider making a big move if someone was available? And
running back.
This motherfucker.
Jesus.
So early in the season.
Nathan, and we found out over the offseason that Nathan keeps a spreadsheet of all running backs in the NFL, watches them very closely. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's got his eye on somebody. But Jeff, we're going to go with you on this one. Is there a position that you would be open to the Seahawks making an expensive move to acquire talent at?
This one hurts because this could have been solved at a much cheaper cost. But to me, the whole thing that still hurts me is that they don't have a great answer at center. And if they can get an elite center, I think offensive line is a sustainable position to invest in a veteran. I would be very happy with a high profile player. They got Gabe Jackson already. To have another guy like that in the middle of the line, I think that lifts this team's ceiling more than a corner, more than a pass rusher, maybe more than another wide receiver. So it kills me that Eskridge is on PUP right now and Creed Humphreys opening as the starting center in Kansas City, that pick might linger all year. So to me, if they could get an established center, I would be very excited about that. If you're looking at Kyle Fuller as your opening day center or something like that, to me, that could be a big problem. And it's such a problem issue. We know everything Russ talked about. So for me, that's the pick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we will come back to the Eskridge news in a bit. Evan, do you have a position? And you cannot say coach. You cannot say coach, asshole. So,
Oh, that would have been good.
Is it pass rush?
Nathan's face.
Is it pass rush?
Nathan, you and Evan have this conversation.
I'm just thinking about what is the weakest position group on this team?
Wide receiver.
You really think so?
Top 2, great.
If they sign,
it is atrocious.
Hold on.
It can't be the weakest position group.
You gave them your immediate reaction to their draft was it's an F.
Yeah.
Because they drafted a receiver instead of a center. And you wanted, but how can you think it's automatically an F if you think that receiver is their weakest position?
I'm glad you asked that, Nathan. Because it's all about how you fill that role. So they don't have an option for how to address the center position other than to have to have drafted one of these young, potentially great centers that would be under club control for multiple years. And to Jeff's point, you get a center who's like a Pro Bowl level center. This line becomes one of the best lines in football and like completely elevates the whole team. If you hit on a slot receiver, it does not elevate the whole team. And I am still on the Golden Tate train. He's out there. I think you sign Golden Tate. There's no guarantee to me that he's not better than Eskridge right now. And so I think there was other ways to address the wide receiver role. And I think for the value available and the decision they made, it has to be that Creed Humphrey and those guys, the 2 or 3 centers that were available, they have to suck. And Eskridge has to be great in order for that grade to be better than F. If Eskridge is good, but Creed Humphrey is a Pro Bowl or an All-Pro, that grade is still an F to me. Like, if you had a chance to get an All-Pro or a Pro Bowl center and you went after a slot receiver, that is a shitty use of that draft pick. And so that's where I am on that. But yeah, I think I absolutely think they need to address wide receiver. I'm surprised you guys are arguing. You feel differently. Like,
does Westbrook do it for you? D.D. Westbrook?
Well, he's already signed.
Oh shit, he signed with the Vikings, didn't he?
Yeah. I would have been happy to have him. I mean,
who's the next best option? Is it just Golden Tate?
Yeah, at this point,
he's tops on my list. He would fill right in. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I advocated for a receiver, and that receiver they took in the draft is now hurt. So I don't disagree that they could use help there. I think I have a really hard time saying it's the weakest position. Like, I would definitely think that corner is a weaker position.
Really?
Man.
Well,
I mean, you don't have anything resembling a DK or a Tyler at corner.
Fair.
For sure, but you have a bunch of like middle tier guys, right?
Yeah, but you have 2 elite. You maybe have the best duo in the league.
That's why I can't say wide receivers anywhere close.
Best defensive tackle.
I actually like our DTs.
Yeah,
I mean you got who is it? Puna Ford, Brian Monet, Al Woods, who they should have signed last year, by the way. John Schneider fucking messed that one up.
Yeah,
LJ Collier.
Al Woods is my early veteran cut pick. I think he's not going to make the team. You
don't think Al Woods is going to make the team?
No, that's my bet.
If Al Woods doesn't make the team, I'm not watching Seahawks games this year.
Bullshit. Bullshit.
He's the reason they might go far.
Is it a D tackle or is he an end?
Who?
Robert Mdiche, Dana's favorite.
He's an interior.
I saw he was starting. I thought he was like playing with the first team today or something.
Free tech. Yeah. I mean, that guy is 300 pounds and he looks like he weighs about 230. He looks
he's a training camp hero though. Like, his deal has always been, knowing how to play the position and everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, okay, so back to the question though. I think center is probably the right choice. But if we're talking about trading for a corner, I'd be way more interested in trying to get Gilmore for a second or a third than trying to flip first or whatever for Howard.
That's a great point. I'm actually right there with you, Nathan. It's not necessarily the position that I object to; it's the cost and the age. Like, I don't mind them getting an older corner that's also really good, but fourth round, fifth round pick, like that kind of compensation, maybe. But if you're trading more than a fourth, maybe a third. But more than that, I think I'd really struggle to see them trade for that. Okay, Eskridge. Let's talk a little bit more about him. For people that don't know, our first pick of our 3 picks this year was put on PUP, so he's not practicing. And did you guys hear Pete Carroll talk about the injury? It was unnerving. It was, someone asked about Philip Dorsett, who, by the way, Eskridge was signed to basically replace and erase the memory of Dorsett signing and never playing a snap due to a foot injury. And Pete Carroll was like, yeah, it's kind of like that. And I'm like, oh God. He's like, we're going to try to make sure he can show us that he can go back-to-back days, and we're hoping maybe next week. But it sounded indefinite. And he said he's had multiple opinions, which mean that it's bad enough that they've had to see multiple doctors. And he said there's no surgical options at this point. So the fact that they're even talking about surgical options, like, my expectations are Eskridge is not going to be a factor this year. Like, until something is proven otherwise, I'm just expecting that guy's not part of the picture. And I think it's hopeful to expect anything else. So if that's the case, which I know is maybe you guys aren't in the same place, who else? And this is why, for me, I'm more comfortable with corner than receiver, because you've got Marquise Blair, you've got Ugo Mata, you've got guys that are starting caliber players that are even depth. Trey Flowers, like, you've got 5, 6, 7 guys at corner that you can all put in there. You've got 2 receivers for what is a dominant 3 receiver offense. You've got nobody. Is Freddie Swain your guy? Are you guys like, yay, Freddie Swain?
I hope not.
Anybody?
I'm really excited about Cade Johnson.
Are you? Okay, tell us. I don't know much about Cade.
I don't know how he's going to look in camp, because he's not like a uber athlete or anything. I mean, he's a fine athlete, but he's not, crazy. That dude looks, I don't know. Everybody watches him and compares him to Tyler Lockett, and he probably is more Lockett's athleticism now than Lockett when he was drafted. But I think a lot of how he plays, the ability to play slot, the shiftiness, but also just the determination and tenacity to go up and get balls and make plays. Like, I don't know. I haven't been watching nearly as many draft guys as, I used to, but, watching his tape was fun. Like, he's just a super fun guy, but like, also you could tell he understands the position. He's smart. He's capable. So I don't want to like put the season on it. But if we're talking at the end of the year about how Cade Johnson saved their season because Eskridge never played a snap and Freddie Swain is Freddie Swain and they never got anybody, like, I'm not going to be shocked about that he's some like hidden hero or something of the season. That won't surprise me a little.
Jeff, are we going to really be sitting here missing David Moore? Like,
No.
Is that going to be a conversation we have?
No, well, I'm the worst guy to ask. I couldn't stand it. I honestly think for the role they envision Eskridge, it's going to sound way too optimistic. It might look idiotic in 2 weeks, but I don't think Penny Hart can't do what they're asking Eskridge to do, which is to run a very similar role, sort of what Brandon Cooks did. Obviously, they're nowhere near the same kind of players. Brandon Cooks gets traded for first-round picks. Penny Hart's like a street free agent. But I don't think it's that out of line that Penny Hart can do a little bit of what they're expecting Eskridge to do. And that's obviously not clearly, it's not obviously that's going to get us excited, and that's not a guy you want as in your 3 receiver set, but I don't think it's crazy that he can play and be fine.
Yeah, he's definitely come out strong, and he's fast and, strong special teamer. I think he's a really good bet to make the team. it's it is uncomfortable to bet the season on Penny Hart as your third receiver. I know Evan, that the guy that you're counting on is the 75-year-old out of Hawaii who's still on the roster.
Wasn't he cut? Is
He
still on
was,
the
but
roster?
he's back. John Ursua. I mean,
I don't think he makes the team.
he's 27 now, right? I think.
Is he really 27 years old?
He's
Might be
never made
old.
the team, has he? I feel like that's a safe bet that he won't make it this year either.
He might be older than 27.
No, he's 27.
This
Yeah.
team is ridiculous sometimes. Like, no, I have no other comments outside of that. I don't think he's going to make the team.
It's crazy, and this is probably a bigger picture thought. How many years in a row has their top pick not made it through camp or not made it into camp? It is ridiculous. We were like, I think Nathan was joking about the medical staff, or it might be serious, but this is a bizarre run where it's like 6 years in a row where their top pick hasn't been able to get through camp.
Yeah.
If you look at it, it was last year with Daryl Taylor, they drafted an injured guy. Brooks got hurt at the beginning of the year. Rashad Penny came into camp overweight. Malik McDowell, Jermaine Fetty got hurt. LJ Collier got hurt. So we're looking at what, Bruce Irvin? Is he the last first pick to like make it through a camp? That's bizarre. Like when we talk about how screwed up this team is, like you can throw darts at a wall and you couldn't come up with a streak like that.
The last healthy player that was a top pick for the Seahawks going into training camp was when I was 14 years old.
Yeah. How does this happen?
I was literally in junior high.
He's also retired now.
Yeah. So clear.
Well, yeah. So let's move on. I mean, I think the receiver spot is, to me, third receiver spot is, I guess we're going to get really specific. That to me is the weakest spot on the whole roster, the third receiver spot.
Okay, we need a Dayna moment. What is the best position? What is the best group on this?
I'm glad you said that. That's where I was going to go next. I mean, from a position group, the funny thing is, Evan, you talk about pass rush.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
I mean, when I'm looking at that group, and I'm like, there's oozing pass rushers, especially edge. I mean, and I like because of what they've done on the edge. I think they actually have some interesting interior options. I think Collier to me is more interesting inside. Rasheem Green is more interesting inside. Hamdiche is someone who's potentially interesting.
So, do you have high hopes for Hyder?
Inside?
No, boy.
What's your perspective on Hyder? Do you have high hopes for him?
Yeah, I think he was their best free agent pickup.
Okay. I'm not disputing that. I just wanted to know like what your expectations were for him.
I sense some discomfort with Kerry Hyder. Speak up.
No, it's just funny because you spent like 4 months drooling over Kerry Hyder, and Evan's like, "Tell me your opinion."
Yeah, that's.
Did you really, Brian?
Evan doesn't listen.
Kerry Hyder.
We know that Evan doesn't listen. Evan talks, but he doesn't listen. That is just something we know about Evan. We love you.
Phil Haynes too.
And by the way, he looks good. He looks like, I didn't even know his number. I was like, who's that guy? He's good, dude. You watch and wait. I'm on the Phil Haynes train. But Kerry Hyder, he looks like nothing. I mean, he looks small. He doesn't look that fast. You would not look at him and say this guy jumps out. But when he gets out there and lines up in a game, Seahawks fans are going to love him. They're going to love Kerry Hyder. They'd be really happy that they have him on this team. Certainly happier than having LJ Collier line up at 5 Tech every day.
It is a remarkable change from the edge recruits last year.
Oh my God.
Like I was watching the stream yesterday, and I think I texted you, just watching Dunlap and Alden. I don't even know if Alden Smith's going to play for the team, but just watching them like walk around, they look massive, like tall compared to the other defensive end. Those two guys just stood out. And Dunlap is a huge, like 6'7" monster. And Alden just looks huge. And then you have like those guys are raving about Daryl Taylor. I don't want to get excited about him either, but you have him. Alton Robinson's like the 5th guy now. Benson Mayowa, like they're body and Hyder. There's a lot of options there.
Let me read them off real quick. I mean, Alden Smith, Alton Robinson, Benson Mayowa, Rasheem Green still fits in that group. You've got Carlos Dunlap. Who am I missing? Daryl Taylor, Kerry Hyder.
Well, that's a lot of names. It's like 7 guys.
That's just a huge list of guys. I mean, yeah. I mean, you compare that to last year where Mayoa and Bruce Irvin. Like those were your guys.
Last year we were excited about that Jonathan Bullard guy. Like we thought he was like a diamond in the rough.
We were searching for water in the middle of
the like our 10th string defensive end now.
So
that was a pretty low point for all of us.
How do you feel, Nathan, about the pass rush? Like, you know, as our resident skeptic, do you agree that that's a position of strength, at least the edge rush?
I do. I mean, that really hinges on Dunlap, right? Like, I think you remove Dunlap from this group, and it doesn't look a whole lot different than what we were looking at last year, right? But Dunlap's, you know, a difference maker. He's a stud, right? And so he changes things. But yeah, I mean, I love the depth and I love that approach. You know, they managed to find somebody who's extremely good. They got him for cheap. And then they got a lot of guys that they can use to manufacture pass rush, which seems like a pretty smart approach. So it's cool to see him go that route.
Well, and their best pass rusher isn't even on the field yet.
That's right. We did forget one edge player.
Jamal Adams, speaking of edge rushers, has not yet signed a contract extension. Are any of you worried? I mean, he's in camp. He's on the sidelines.
It's going to be done by next Friday.
Okay, why next Friday?
I just think this team loves him. This franchise loves him. Pete Carroll loves him. John Schneider loves him. They invested a ton of resources in acquiring him. He's been too good for this team to let go. I think if the squabble is over $1 million or $2 million per year, I don't think it's worth it. And I think this gets done.
I want to hear from each of you right now. Do you believe Jamal Adams is an all-pro blue chip player that you're happy to have on the team at the price he's going to cost? I want to know from each of you how you feel about it. I'm not talking about the draft picks. I'm talking about the contract price. So, Jeff, I'm going to start with you.
I will say no. I think he is a blue chip player. I think he is a great safety, but I don't think that's a great way of allocating resources. And as good, even for example, like Bobby Wagner, great player, couldn't be a better Seahawk, but I think there's a great question looking at him and looking at positional value, whether that was a smart investment. $18 million. And listen, I love Jamal. I'm happy he's on the team. He's a great player. He brings a ton of energy, but I don't think spending 17, 18 million on a safety who's not great in coverage is a wise investment.
Evan.
God, that's a really tough question. If it's 7 to 18 million, I'm okay with it. But if we start approaching 2021, 22, like pass rusher type, like he makes a ton of sacks type impact into his contract negotiations, then I get more nervous. But 17 or 18, sure. Why not?
Okay. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's making $2 or $3 million more than the next highest paid safety who got paid this year.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am I happy to have him on a team? He's young. He's obviously dynamic. Yeah, I'm happy to have him on the team. Is he really like just lapping the field in terms of how good he is? Like, I don't know. I don't think so. I think that this is it's going to be one of those things where it's a pretty poor use of resources on a very good player. And so how much does it ultimately matter? It's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I don't know that you can really look at, you know, let's say they sign him for 17 and a half, right? Split the difference. They gave up 2 first round picks to get him. It's just hard to think that it's hard to think that they weren't paying well over his actual value, which is still very high. So I don't know. I guess that's where I am.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all in on Jamal. I agree with you, Evan. Similar in terms of like where I'd be uncomfortable with the price. I think 17, 18 is as high as I'd be comfortable with. But look, Bobby's not getting any younger. There isn't another face of this defense that has the attitude and the leadership necessary. Jamal is young, elite, and multi-talented. And I think that obviously it would be better if they could have drafted somebody like that, but they didn't. And so the fact that he's here, I absolutely want him to sign him. I think the Seahawks fans have not seen Jamal Adams at his best. I don't think they've even seen him close to at his best.
Not even close.
And I think him in front of a full Lumen field when healthy, I think people are going to see like a guy whose ceiling is defensive player of the year level talent. Like I think he has the ability to fill up the stat line. And I think this idea that he is a bad cover safety, I'm not saying great, but the fact that people think he's a bad cover safety, I think that's going to come back and get revisited this year. I do not think Jamal Adams is a bad coverage safety. I think he can be every bit what Cam Chancellor was, which was a good coverage safety for a strong safety. I do not think he is a free safety cover player. So I think he can cover tight ends. And I think there's going to be some people that should eat their words on Seahawks Twitter about Jamal Adams. And I doubt they will. But I think Jamal Adams is going to be the best player on this defense and the second best player on the whole team this year.
So with that said, does he deserve to make more than Bobby Wagner makes per year?
100%. 100%. The fact that the Seahawks were saying that the rumor is there's some discomfort about paying him more than Bobby. I understand the optics because Bobby's like the team leader and all that.
That was a little weird to me though.
I thought it was a negotiation ploy.
I'm sure.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
A Bobby ploy. I doubt it matters at all. It wouldn't shock me one bit if they were like, all right, look, we're going to make a little news at the start of training camp. You get a week longer of vacation, and then we're going to pay you more than we pay Bobby, because it's just a stupid thing to care about. I mean, I get that they might want to give him some love and some press like that, but if they think a player is worth more than Bobby and they're not going to pay him it just because of that, that's pretty foolish.
That'd be so stupid. That'd be super stupid. Speaking of Bobby, I'll tell you one other thing that I noticed at camp. He's no longer the most athletic linebacker on that roster. Like, it jumped off the field. Jordan Brooks is next level right now. His thighs are like Evan's entire torso. Like he looks like he is ready to do damage this year. And I was watching them just going through step drills, the speed at which his feet move relative to, I mean, Bobby used to just destroy that drill. And it's not that he's like slow now, but it's just clear Jordan Brooks has got almost a decade on him, right? Age-wise, and is in his athletic prime. So there's a new king of the hill there.
Brian, you just got to keep in mind, they don't allow porn on YouTube. So you got to tone down a little bit.
Evan, I definitely do not want to know what you consider to be porn for multiple reasons. So thank you for that. But yeah, Jordan Brooks could be a guy that like most people aren't really counting on to be an impact player. That guy.
ESPN put out a list of 15 players who are going to become like star level in their second year. He was number 4, I believe, on the whole list.
Really?
Damian Lewis was in the top 15 and Brooks was number 4. I think it was a PFF list too.
Wait a second. I thought the Seahawks don't draft well.
They said that Brooks has elite coverage instincts. He just needs to be more consistent.
Yeah, I'm super high on Brooks. But I do want to come back to this question about the best position group. So we talked about edge rush, at least. There's other position groups on this roster. I think you can go through almost all of them and feel pretty good. Like, I could go through it, but I want to hear other position groups for you guys that jump out as super strong.
Safety.
Okay, talk about it.
Well, Jamal Adams is one of the best players in the league at the position, wherever you think of him. Quandre Diggs has been a very valuable cover safety in their scheme. So that's
Last year of his deal, by the way.
last year. So he's been the second half of the year last year. He played a lot better, and the people who spend a lot of time on X's and O's are really high in what he does in the scheme. And I thought Ryan Neal played pretty admirable in a backup role last year, and he showed that he can play a pinch. He's not. The more we saw him, the talent started to diminish a little bit. But you got two high-level starters, two Pro Bowl level starters with an All-Pro ceiling, with capable backups. And there's Marquise Blair's on the team. He could slide in at safety too. To me, that's the best position on the team other than quarterback.
By the way, Marquise Blair is who slid into safety with Jamal Adams out, interestingly enough, at the first unit. So I think that's a great one. Evan, you have another position group that you love on this team?
I like tight end.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Gerald Everett, like Will Dissly, Colby Parkinson, like
What did you just call him?
Nathan, every time Evan says something, Nathan just smiles and starts shaking his head.
Did I say a name wrong?
That's pretty fair, no?
Wait, what did you say?
He called him like Gerald Everett or something.
Is that not how you say his name?
Pretty sure it's
Gerald.
Gerald.
Is it Gerald? Gerald?
There's nobody called Gerald.
Who's Gerald?
Nobody in the world is called Gerald.
All right,
Gerald
that means
Everett.
Everett's going to have a terrible year now.
Well, that was a bad signing for the Seahawks this offseason. No, but for real, I think that group is pretty solid this year, frankly. Like Will Dissly is a tight end too. Can you really be upset with that?
Yeah, and Dissly himself said that last year, coming back from the injury, he was not himself.
Yeah.
Did you hear Everett on a Softy show yesterday?
I didn't.
He had some funny quotes. He was like, no disrespect to Jared Goff, but he's not in the same like world as Russell Wilson. And it was just like the Rams, like the offense and the defense never connected with the Rams. We were always like, it was just like Pete's so much fun. McVay was hard on it. He was very open. He was just trashing Goff. It was pretty interesting.
Well, I've heard some rumors. There's not just Gerald Everett that came from the Rams. Obviously, Shane Waldron, other guys have come from the Rams organization. The scuttlebutt is people are escaping the Rams organization and are attracted to the Seattle culture. Coaches, players, others. And so it'll be interesting. Like McVay is like the wonder kid, but some of the scuttlebutt is it's not necessarily all roses down in LA. So tight end's a good one. Nathan, another position, any other position groups to you that jump out?
Quarterback's pretty good.
What's that?
Quarterback is pretty good.
Who do you want to be backup, mister? Who do you want to be
That's
back?
it's not even a question. It's Alex Magoo's time. Gino's got to step aside. He's old. He needs to retire. It's Alex Magoo's time.
You know what? I sent you the picture because I knew you needed to see. He is pushing Jordan Brooks on the leg front. That guy, he reported in some pretty good shape.
Maybe he's going to take the Taysom Hill role this year.
He was pretty mobile. I mean, I honestly don't remember him that well, but I remember he was pretty good that preseason with us. Like
that's a dynamic that Seattle's offense could really use. They could use a more dynamic, mobile quarterback, someone a little bit more spry.
Yeah, that's true. Russell Wilson has never been known for his mobility.
Well, it's like half a joke, but like that's becoming a real thing. Like every year, it's getting worse. His mobility. Like he still makes plays. He's still Russell. He's still crazy. He'll still do wild shit in the pocket, but he is not the same guy from an athleticism perspective. And that's going to be fun to watch interesting to watch over the next couple of years.
Well, it's so funny. I mean, it's so predictable. Every offseason, you can set your watch to it. Russell Wilson has had the best offseason ever. He's reported in insane shape. Jake Heaps with his hype, tweets. People don't understand how much he was killing it this offseason. And
he always looks chunky.
I'm not saying he looks chunky. I'll leave that to you. But I mean, he's getting older. How much is he really going to all of a sudden report and be back to like a 4.40 guy? Like, I don't think so.
You saw those Jake Heaps tweets too. I was like cringing.
I mean, I love Jake Heaps, and I love he's Russell's guy. Like, that's great. But I'm not buying it. I'm not buying like that all of a sudden Russell's like turned on and not like all up until now, Russell was just slacking all off season, but he just turned it on this year and it's like a different animal. Like I don't buy that at all.
But it was interesting what Nathan said. I was listening to Mike Sando the other day talk about his quarterback tiers. And he said Russell went from getting, I think, 49 or 50 first tier votes to only 46 this year. And I think they said that some defensive coaches who played against him in the second half last year thought he looked a little sluggish and slower. And they found him, he was easier to tackle than usual. And he said there were 4 defensive coaches that played him last year that didn't give him tier 1 votes because of that exact reason.
Well, Evan, you bastard. He's always like, I gotta leave. Like, just give us like 2 minutes. Come on, you're gonna stay on for a few more minutes. What are you tired? You gotta sleep?
I have no idea what you're talking about, Brian.
Come on, dude. So another position group that's really strong is running back. And I will tell you, part of the reason I'm giving Evan shit is because not only Chris Carson, I mean, anyone that saw his videos of the offseason know that he is in incredible shape. Like, there's no doubting it. That guy is a beast. But Rashad Penny, he looks as good as I've ever seen him. And I mean, who knows how it's going to translate, whether he stays healthy, but it was no surprise to me when it came out, the report that he's reported in at 220. He's trimmed down. He looks much slimmer than he did before. And he looked fast. So, I mean, you got Rashad Penny, you've got Chris Carson, you've got Alex Collins, you got DJ Dallas. And actually, there was another guy that looks like he's it's a rookie at free agent. I had to look up who it was. Josh Johnson. He is like a bowling ball, like super short but stocky. Like reminds me a little bit of Justin Forsett, but a little faster. So I think the running back position is super strong. So I mean, in summary, you got a strong quarterback position. You've got strong tight end. I think the offensive line looks pretty strong. You've got defensive line is strong. You've got safety looking strong. I think you've got questions at corner. I think you've got some questions at defensive tackle. You've got questions at third receiver. It's not a lot of questions, honestly. So I know we have to wrap up a little bit, but the only other thing I wanted to at least talk with you guys a little bit about is Duane Brown. So Duane Brown did mention that he wants a contract extension. He also is in camp but not practicing. Do they extend him? I'm going to give you 2 questions. Do they extend him? And if they do not, will he hold out into the regular season? And Evan, I'm going to start with you.
I'd say they need to extend him. Who's the backup behind him? Is it Stone? Whatever.
Jones.
Jamarco Jones is technically the backup behind him.
Yeah, he's been getting the snaps.
Duane Brown is, what is he, 35, 36 years old? He's a tackle. We know tackles, except, tackles of his caliber can play late into their 30s. I really don't see an issue with extending him. He signed, his previous deal was really reasonable. It was like 3 years, 34 million or something in that like $10, $12 million range. Like I'd be completely comfortable, ticking that up a little bit, a couple $1 million per year. Like you cannot convince, he's an all pro left tackle. Like last year was maybe one of his best years in the NFL. I don't think he's declining. I think he's absolutely like a $14, $15 million player per year, like maybe even more, frankly. I think he is absolutely a type of guy that you give an easy 3-year extension to. And on top of that, extending him would actually reduce his salary cap hit this year. So to me, it makes complete sense.
And if they don't, do you think he holds out?
I don't know what the new NFL CBA rules are, though, with like holding out with games specifically. So I don't know 100%.
Penalties have gotten worse with the new CBA for holdout.
I know they have in training camp, but I don't know what the impact I guess the logical assumption is that it's worse for games too, but I don't know.
Nathan, do they extend him? And if they don't, do you think he holds out?
I this is just a gut thing. I think they're not going to. I don't think he's gonna have he's gonna have some little type of holdout, but nothing into the season, nothing remotely close.
Okay. Jeff?
I don't think he'll hold into the season. To me, honestly, I think the whole Duane Brown thing is good news. I think the fact that he wants to play beyond this year is a big positive to me, especially given how they've sort of not addressed the left tackle of the future. There's that Stone Forsyth guy, but I don't want to get too excited about him. He's a 6th-round pick, a lot of work to do. So again, the fact that they're not going to be searching for left tackle, they don't have that 1st-round pick. Though this year they probably would have spent it on a tackle if they had one. So the fact that Duane Brown wants to keep playing, to me, that's a huge positive, and I think he will be here.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned that the Seahawks don't plan to extend him, and I'm concerned this could end up being an issue. I'm with you, Evan. I think that they should extend him, and I'm with you, Jeff. I think it is good news. If they don't, he plays an expensive position. They don't have a lot of leverage because they don't have a good backup. And if they get in a position where they feel like they are out leveraged and they don't want to put that number on the table, and he decides not to play, that's a season changing issue. So more than the Jamal Adams issue, I've got my eye on that. I want to see Duane Brown in a uniform and happy.
Brian, what number makes you uncomfortable with Duane Brown?
I don't know.
Knowing what
top market. What's the top of the market for left tackles right now?
Is it that Tunsil at 22.5? I think.
Probably.
I mean,
he's not touching that.
No, he's not. Not at his age. But would you pay him $18 million a year?
Duane Brown has done way more to show that he will earn $18 million a year on the on the field than Jamal Adams has.
I don't know if I agree with that, but I do. I mean, I think the positional value is super high. So I understand where you're coming from.
I don't think he'll ask for $18 million.
Yeah, I think to me, like if it's in the 15 to 16 million range, I'm much more comfortable.
Sure. The Seahawks have a way of doing business. They prioritize their contracts. So I think the Duane Brown thing is just waiting for Adams to get done, and then they'll move on to that.
Yeah.
That's how they let Carlos hit the market.
Yeah, this is how they operate. They have.
So who knows?
That was scary.
Yeah, we all hated that, but it worked in their favor.
Yeah,
franchise Duane Brown.
Yeah, I mean, one other cool thing that came out is that 90 out of 91 players on the roster have been vaccinated. I think, not trying to get into politics here, but just from a competitive advantage standpoint, the potential that the Seahawks are going to be less prone to having players have to miss time because they've been vaccinated, I think is a big deal. And there's going to be teams in the league that we saw it last year, Tennessee, Baltimore, whatever. Lamar Jackson just got COVID for the second time. It's I think it could be a huge competitive advantage for the team. So kudos to the team, kudos to the players, everyone involved for getting that to happen. But we'll see how that goes. So, all right. I know we've got a wrap here. Any last words from each of you before we sign off for the night? Jeff, start with you. Anything you're looking at coming up in the next few days or weeks?
No, I'm mostly excited that I have something to read about every day again, and something that's not COVID. And my Raptors screwed up their draft pick tonight, so something that's not. And to me, the buzz of Daryl Taylor has caught my eye early. I'm a skeptic with him, but it's Dunlap, it's Bobby. There's a lot of talk coming out about how explosive he looks and how smart he is. So I'm curious if that carries over into the preseason games, and I'm curious to see how him and Brooks and Damian Lewis look this year. So, yeah, it's just fun to follow again.
Evan, Anything you're particularly looking for news on over the coming days on the Seahawks front?
That's a really good question. The Eskridge stuff really makes me nervous. I know we covered that, but toe foot injuries make me really nervous because they nag for receivers. That's the thing. It could last like we saw what happened with Philip Dorsett last year, right? Like where he was, projected to come back and just never did. So, he was Seattle's top pick this year. I think if he can play a heavy role this year, that's significant. So I really hope he's a player that's, this is obvious, but ready come the start of the season. I think he can make a big impact.
Nathan, how about you?
I'm with Jeff. I'm just excited to have it all back and be talking about it again. It's awesome.
Well, did we do any Patreon questions? I know Evan's got to go. Someone was asking. Sam was
Frick.
asking.
I can pull it up actually. No problem.
I did not post any Patreon questions. I forgot.
I did.
Oh.
Because I'm responsible.
Uh-huh.
And I remember this stuff. I am pulling it up as we.
While you're doing that, I will say one other thing that was interesting to me and that I'll be keeping an eye on is the Shane Waldron offense. And one of the things that got me excited watching camp was a lot of outside, like not surprisingly, a lot of pitch plays, a lot of outside zone runs, and then a lot of play action off of that. And more excited, you guys, I saw it. I swear to God, I saw it. Multiple intermediate routes, not 50 yards downfield, not 5 yards downfield, but 15 to 25 yards. I saw DK catching. I saw Gerald Everett catching. That was completely absent from this offense last year. And it was all or nothing. And so I'm really going to keep an eye on that. I was pleased with what I saw in that early camp.
We've got 3 or 4 solid questions that I'm going to hit you guys with. I'm just going to go solo questions. Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Of the following 3 players, who is it most important that they have a good training camp? Robert, whatever the heck his name is from the Cardinals.
Okay.
I'm not even going to try. Aldon Smith or Darrell Taylor?
Well, probably the most important guy would be MDJ because if he doesn't, there's no way he's making the team. So I would say.
Well, let's reposition that from the Seahawks perspective, like from a team success perspective.
Oh, it's clearly Taylor. Taylor's the guy who they have a long-term investment in. Smith is a 1-year stopgap, and DJ is a flyer. Mm-hmm. Taylor's the guy they invested, they traded up for in the best wide receiver draft class. He was the guy they valued as their Frank Clark replacement, essentially. And he's a guy with a long-term ceiling on this team where the other guys probably won't be back, even if they make the team at all this year. So to me, Taylor is just a totally different conversation than those two.
Brian, this next one's to you because it's Rams related. How worried are you that we may be potentially underestimating Matthew Stafford's impact on the Rams?
Who in the world is underestimating? All I'm seeing is that the Rams are like,
do you really see
favorites to win like the world? Like we went through the Vegas odds. Like the Seahawks are like complete underdogs right now. Mm-hmm. Do you want? Wait, I'm going to bring it up. Vegas odds. You guys come back to me, but
I will say it's swung back around a little bit. Like people got really excited about Stafford and talked about how good he was. And then it just like snowballed, and now everyone's like laughing about it.
The Rams are the 7th. Well, they're tied actually for the 5th best odds to win the Super Bowl. They're tied with the Ravens and the 49ers. The Browns have a better chance, according to Vegas odds, to win the Super Bowl than the Seahawks.
How are the Niners 5th?
They got the Chiefs 1st, the Bucks 2nd, the Bills 3rd, the Packers 4th, and then you got the Ravens, 49ers, and Rams 5th.
I mean, say what you want about overrating the Rams, but the Niners are is the one that's not like the others there for me.
I guess, man. I think it's a talented roster and a great coaching staff. So, we'll see. But
Nathan.
So to answer your question directly, I'm not underestimating Sean McVay, who's a great offensive mind with a quarterback who is not a total dipshit. That's concerning. And that offense was still damn good with Jared Goff.
Mhm.
Really good. So I guess I have some question of how much better they can be. I think they'll be more consistent. I don't necessarily think they're going to all of a sudden score 50 points a game, but I do think that they're going to be more consistent. And with that defense, Aaron Donald is still the best player in football. So, the hope there is less about Matthew Stafford and more about their defensive coach moving on. And you got to hope that that's a big effect because they had Wade, Wade Phillips, yes, and he was a great defensive coach, and he did not do the same things with those same players. So,
then they had Brandon Staley, right?
Brandon Staley was the guy that left, right? And they lost Josh Johnson, and they lost other safeties. So, they lost the other cornerback, right? Didn't they? Anyway, they lost a couple players. So, I'm curious how the defense plays.
Let's end on a fun question, Nathan.
I don't want to answer any Jason Myers questions.
It's not Jason. Well, it actually might be Jason Myers.
Okay.
It might be a Jason Myers answer, actually, to this question. Which non-quarterback Seahawk would you love to see throw a touchdown pass this season?
And it can't be a quarterback.
It can't be a quarterback.
Because, non-Russell Wilson, it's still a quarterback for me, I think. I want to see Alex Magoo throw a touchdown. It'll be the stupidest touchdown in the world. It'd be amazing.
He's a quarterback, though.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying if it was all right, okay. I'll play the game.
Jason Myers?
No, God, no.
Pull a John Ryan in the NFC Championship game?
It's got to be Jamal Adams.
How does that happen?
Wait, you want Jamal Adams to throw it? Wait, how is that gonna
I want to know the offensive formation.
First of all, yes. How does that even happen? All right. And then second of all, if you're just talking about a guy who's gonna lose his goddamn mind if he ever throws a touchdown pass, Jamal Adams is gonna do some really stupid stuff if he throws the touchdown pass, and I kind of want to see that.
I gotta love that answer.
I feel like Michael Dixon would showboat if he threw a touchdown pass.
Didn't he? What did he do when he ran for the first down? Did he do anything?
He spiked the ball, didn't he, or something?
Yeah. Kind of tang. If we're talking about strictly offensive players, DK for basically the same answer because he's going to put on a show if he does it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. You got to imagine the DK with the athlete he is. He would throw an 80-yard touchdown. And it would be on a dime, laser beam, and it would just be holy shit, this guy can do everything. But I like the Jamal Adams. I'm gonna think about that.
That is the end of the Patreon questions.
Thank you, Sam, for making sure we remembered that. And thank patrons. Please go to patreon.com/hawkblogger. Join the community over on the Slack channel. If you haven't already, click the like button on YouTube. Click subscribe to click the little bell to get notified when we go live. You never know when it's going to happen. We are going to start getting more consistent on Wednesday evenings. You will see that happen. I'm even going to adjust my schedule so it's possible. Wednesdays have been a little tough for me lately, but we're going to make it happen. And we're all looking forward to just getting back together and having this conversation about the Seahawks on a regular basis. Most of it will be about the Seahawks. We may talk a little bit about F-Boy Island. I'm not going to lie. But until then, have a wonderful evening and go Hawks. Mm.